This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to speak with Jonathan Abrams about Juror number two. How are you, Jonathan?
Great, Abe. How are you doing?
Good. I am curious about your most recent experience on jury duty.
I've only had one, and it was a while ago. And they bring us into the room before you go into like the courtroom. And there was maybe like 100 people waiting. We'd been waiting all morning. And the bailiff says, "All right, everyone." It's maybe like 11:30 a.m. "All right, everyone. We're about to start, your the trial that you may or may not be selected for. This is a high profile murder trial." And like a gasp lets out throughout the group. "What we need you to do now, due to the public nature of this murder trial, it is going to be a sequestered jury. That means we are going to have you live in a hotel like the OJ jury. I need you to call your loved ones and let them know that if you are picked, you may not be coming home for 3 to 6 months." And everybody is like freaking out. "Are there any questions?" And like a couple people ask a question, and then the fourth person goes, "Are you messing with us?" And the bailiff goes, "Indeed I am. The case was dismissed. You can all leave." And we left.
That is entertaining. I wasn't sure where this was going. Is I I imagine that was not the inspiration for this story.
Not the inspiration for the story. The inspiration for the story is that I used to consult for a friend of mine who was a prosecutor, and I would write his or help him write his opening and closing arguments. And so he would invite me down to watch the trials that I was helping him with to get a sense of them. And one day I was in court watching from the gallery as jury selection was happening. It's like a scene in the movie, and everyone was trying to be excused, and the judge wasn't having it. And I asked myself, what could you say to this judge right now to get kicked off the jury? "Well, Your Honor, I can't serve on the jury because I committed the crime." And I'm like, that's a great idea for a movie. I didn't know what the movie really was at that point, but I recognized that germ or that seed of like, this is something very, very cool.
How important were, specific rules to you in terms of like how much this could actually happen in real life?
Well, I think it has to just be, what's the right word? Plausible. And then within that, you try to make it as probable as possible. Are dinosaurs really going to come back in an amusement park? No. But they sell you with the little whatever it was etched in ember, and you're like, all right, it's believable enough. Like they did the effort to earn my buy-in. It's about the buy-in. And so, look here. I think that when you really look at the way that the criminal justice system works, and it's talked about in the movie, yeah, if everybody did their job perfectly, the premise probably doesn't hold water. However, when you have a justice system that's about expediency, and no one's got bad intentions, it's just a matter of like people want to clear cases. It's bureaucratic. Things can get overlooked. You will ignore everything that doesn't add to your argument. It's confirmation bias, like they say in the movie. And so that's part of how I believed and how I constructed it. I'm like, it has to sort of make enough sense that you could say, all right, maybe that could happen, maybe. But then when you factor that against, but also it's intentional because the people that are actually bringing this case to be have their own motives. And that's sort of what allows for us to arrive here. I think if you played the whole thing totally straight, it would be a more difficult hill to climb.
Well, I've only actually ever been on jury duty once myself. The other most recent time was without the comedy routine, but the same thing that happened to you in terms of the case was,
Yeah.
was settled. But when I did it, what I remembered most strongly is we went in and took a vote, and it was 6-6 right off the bat. And so, like, to start from there. And so I like that you have characters who, you have the foreperson who wants to do her job. That's what she's most, concerned with. You have people who just want to get home, who don't want to take more votes. You have people who think, like, this is important. We have to take the time to do it. Did you like map out the jurors to figure out who would represent what ahead of time?
Oh, 100%. It was a very difficult challenge because what you have to do in a script like that, or like, this, is create economy with these characters so that the audience immediately can identify with like who's who. Giving them names isn't going to really help, right? So you have to give them an identifying characteristic immediately. But then you have to figure out, okay, with that characteristic, what's like an outgrowth of that characteristic that's going to affect the plot in some way? Let's let everybody, and not all of this made it into the cut that you saw, but in the script, there's a little more of it, of, really playing into what's this person's like ism, and then how does that affect how they're going to vote and how they're going to affect the ultimate, verdict. So that was really what it was. There was a little bit of math and science to it in that respect, of like flow charting it. It was not easy.
Is there a significance to number two?
I think it just had the best ring to it, honestly.
I think that's
Nine,
probably true.
maybe nine could have worked, but anything else just doesn't sound cool. Juror number four? No.
So you got to work with Clint Eastwood on this film, which is a pretty
Yeah.
impressive accomplishment, especially for your first feature screenplay. How did that all pan out, and what was it like?
So a producer on the film, a different producer, they had optioned my script, intended to make it for $5 million. That ultimately did not pan out, but they said, look, we'd like to try to produce this. We just won't finance it. Okay. And we had a director's list, like a great director's list, 5, 6 really, really strong names. No one of the caliber, respectfully, of Clint Eastwood, because there's only a handful of people that are. And they said, hey, would you like to add any names to the list? Dream big. What the heck? And I said, all right, what about Clint Eastwood? Because I really did think he was somebody that would have appreciated back then. I thought he would appreciate this story. This is someone who would have a respect for something like 12 Angry Men. And look at that movie as almost like a touchstone for the movies that he tried to make, because 12 Angry Men, there's no histrionics there. It's very in the pocket and just subdued and understated. Anyway, they say, okay, we'll add him to the list. It's a crazy idea, but we agree with you. It's like a good idea. And they sent it to Clint's producer at Malpaso Productions, Tim Moore, who passed it around everyone at Malpaso. They all read the script and they called and they said, we all like it. And we think Clint might go for it. We never know what he's going to respond to or not, but he might. And that was the start. And he ultimately read it not too long after. And he said, I get what you're trying to do. I really like it. I need to read it a second time to see if I could see myself directing it. He did that, and then we were go.
You have a favorite film of his besides this one?
I mean, of course, Unforgiven's like maybe that's the best. I really like Mystic River. Mystic River was a movie that I looked to a lot, certainly once he came on board, in terms of, yes, that's a murder mystery in the same way ours is a legal thriller, but it really isn't, and ours really isn't. It's really a character drama with this sort of high concept or more, alluring kind of hook or premise to draw you in, but then it's just an exploration of character. And so I studied that a lot in the early days as I was rewriting the script, and I listened to the score, which Clint composed, to just really try to get in the headspace of like, what was he doing here and how can I try to bring that out of him again? I never said that to him, mind you, but that was for me.
I don't want to spoil things for anyone who hasn't seen the film, but did
Yeah,
you consider multiple different endings?
we did. We did. We shot, I believe, 3, not wildly different than what's up there. I wrote 2 more. The first draft, I guess I can say this without spoiling much. The first draft that he read, that he signed on to, ended at the cemetery. So it's a similar scene that is in the film, and it's where Nick Holt's character, Justin Kemp, is laying flowers at the grave of the woman who has died in this, murder that is kind of the whole, basis of the plot. And as he's leaving, that's when he encounters Toni Collette's character, Faith, and where they have their sort of standoff, which exists in the current movie, but not at the cemetery. And it sort of ends where the standoff ends in the movie, which is her essentially saying, I figured the whole thing out. I know what you did. And he says, okay, but if you pursue it, Where's the justice in that? And the end of the original movie was essentially him leaving the cemetery. He sees the gardener like he does in the current movie. Except in the original draft, the gardener says, looks like the storm passed. And Justin says, don't count on it, or something like that. So as to say, yeah, maybe I got away with this, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna have to live with the guilt. And what's that? And so Clint wanted to push it further than that. He thought we needed a little more resolution than that. And so that's sort of where we went towards, and he kept pushing me further and further. But he shot, like I said, three endings that each pushed the thing a little bit further.
This is a pretty high profile start. Do you have other scripts in the works and is anything in development?
Yeah, yeah, I have a bunch. I wrote a movie that I sold as a pitch to the Russo brothers at Agbo. They have a company called Agbo, and it's a biopic about Jimmy Stewart, specifically how he came home from World War II in 1945, having flown bomber planes, dropping bombs into enemy territory, and comes home with PTSD, even though he doesn't know what that is yet, because no one knew what that was yet. And he's been out of Hollywood for 5 years. He's run afoul of Louis B. Mayer, for whom he worked before he left for the war. He won the Oscar in 1941 for Philadelphia Story, Best Actor. And then a week later decides to enlist. So think about that for a second. What kind of a person does that? Incredible. But anyway, it's the story of how he comes home to a Hollywood that doesn't know him anymore or really want him anymore. And he and Frank Capra team up to make It's a Wonderful Life. And through him playing the character of George Bailey, he is able to come to terms with what he experienced in the war. It's a really beautiful character piece, but also a great, interesting look into the making of, the most beloved holiday film ever. So it's a really fun one, and it's a real Valentine to old Hollywood. And I think people who like Christmas, war movies, and Hollywood, any of the three will enjoy it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, since this is awards buzz, I'm always curious people I'm talking to. What have you
Yeah.
seen recently, a film that really is sticking with you as awards worthy?
I haven't seen a ton, if I can be completely honest. What did I watch? What did I watch? I want to watch all of them. I've just been so busy working and, fortunately, people like yourself have wanted to talk to me and to us on the film about what's going on. It also like infects my head a little bit. I don't want to compare too much, but I watched Honora. I liked it. Um, God, what are some of the others? I hate to say it, I have not seen enough, but I'm very excited. I want to see The Order, which comes out today, because Nick Holt's in that. That looks really exciting. I'll of course go see Wicked. I just have to go, with my kids. They're little, but we'll do that over Christmas, I'm sure. Amelia Perez looks interesting. A lot of buzz on that one. The Brutalist, I'm like gearing myself up for that. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What's your favorite of the year?
It's a good question. Well, I think The Order is definitely a good choice, and it's a very different Nicholas Hoult performance. But my favorite is not in the awards conversation, unfortunately. But it's called It's What's Inside. It's on Netflix. Uh, it was premiered at some festivals, Sundance, South by Southwest, but highly recommended.
Who made that film?
Greg Jardin.
Oh, yes, of course, the horror movie.
I wouldn't call it a horror movie, but yes, it is a thriller.
Got it. Yes. That is on it literally is on my list on Netflix. I'm gonna check it out. I hear great things. I think he may have gone to USC when I was there. There's some overlap. I know people that know him.
Well, I hope you'll have plenty more opportunities to talk about this film, but also a chance to catch up on everything that you're so
I
eager to
can't
see.
wait. We're not going anywhere for the holidays, so there's a lot of catch up to do, and I look forward to it very much.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much, Abe.